Hey Priya, let me ask you something. Is it truly possible to experience a massive wave of emotion but choose to do absolutely nothing with it?
You mean experiencing the full intensity of the feeling without having a massive blowout?
Exactly. Fully acknowledging the emotion, yet consciously choosing to freeze frame for a second.
To be completely honest, that sounds incredibly challenging.
It definitely is. However, mastering that moment of stillness is one of the most transformative skills a person can develop, and that is precisely what we are exploring today.
Hello to all our English learners out there. Welcome back to the Dopely English Podcast, your comfortable corner for mastering natural English through authentic, real-life conversations. I'm Priya.
And I'm Rohan. We are absolutely thrilled to have you sharing this space with us today. Priya, before we dive deep into our main topic, I need to share a quick story about something that happened to me earlier this week.
Oh, really? Don't keep me waiting. What happened?
All right, so I recorded this really long voice note for a close friend. I was opening up completely, sharing some personal things that had been causing me a ton of anxiety. I was being incredibly vulnerable. And do you want to know what her response was?
What did she say?
She literally just texted back,
Wait, that's all? Just a single,
Just, No periods, no exclamation marks, not even a single emoji.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. So I just stared at my screen, spiraling. I thought, is she furious with me? Did I cross a line by oversharing? Is she avoiding me? Did I upset her? I managed to construct every single worst-case scenario in less than a minute.
And let me guess, what was the actual reality behind it?
She was in the middle of preparing dinner. She messaged me properly later, explaining that she typed, because she was actively stirring a boiling pot on the stove.
Yet your imagination managed to direct an entire cinematic masterpiece.
A complete blockbuster filled with complex characters and a dramatic plot, an entire emotional roller coaster triggered by a three-letter word.
Precisely. And here is the truly eye-opening part. You weren't actually responding to reality. You were responding to the fictional narrative your mind created.
Man, that hits deep. It is so true. The actual event can be tiny, but the story we tell ourselves about it becomes enormous.
And that brings us to the core theme of today's episode, discovering how to interrupt that automatic emotional reaction before the negative narrative in your head completely hijacks your behavior.
Plus, since this is a solid B2 level English conversation, you're going to pick up highly practical vocabulary for navigating emotional situations, handling misunderstandings, managing tough dialogues, and maintaining self-possession.
Stick around for the second half, or we will conduct our revised word tour, focusing intensely on just 6 high-impact words.
Yes, fewer words, but a much richer learning experience. We're going to take our time with each one, breaking down practical sentence patterns and demonstrating exactly how to utilize them across various contexts.
So definitely stay tuned. By the time we finish today, you won't just grasp the psychology behind the topic, you'll possess the linguistic tools to discuss your feelings in a significantly more fluent and natural manner.
Before we move forward, if you love leveling up your vocabulary with us, please take a quick second to hit the like button and subscribe to the Dopely English Podcast.
Absolutely. Your support acts as a huge catalyst for our channel's growth, and it allows other learners around the globe to discover these calm, practical English lessons.
We also have a personal question for everyone listening today. When someone hurts your feelings, do you typically fire back an instant reaction, or do you step back and pause first? Give us your honest answer, no judgment whatsoever. Drop a comment below saying either, I react instantly, or I pause first.
And hey, if your honest answer is, I react instantly, but I'm trying hard to change that, welcome to the club.
Oh, it's a massive club with a very passionate membership. All right, let's unpack our very first major concept. Whenever life applies heavy pressure, human beings generally split into 2 distinct categories.
And honestly, I think most of us have embodied both of these types at different stages of our lives.
Definitely. The first type of person meets an obstacle and immediately gets swallowed up by the emotional tide. The moment a situation goes sideways, their internal voice cries out, "Why does this terrible stuff always happen to me?"
Ooh, that felt it. That is incredibly relatable. A professional rejection, a minor blunder, an awful shift at the office, or a disagreement with a relative, suddenly you feel like the entire universe has a personal vendetta against you.
Exactly. The original difficulty is already painful enough on its own, but then our mind piles on an extra blanket of suffering.
It's like the actual problem occurs exactly once in the real world, but we force ourselves to relive it 100 times more in our thoughts.
Yes, and that exact mental loop is where people usually lash out. They aren't just reacting to the isolated incident, they're responding to accumulated stress, old fears, past wounds, and the fictional story they're spinning.
So the emotional volume completely drowns out the reality of the situation.
Precisely. And in many cases, we begin to internalize the issue.
Internalize. Just to clarify for our listeners, that means absorbing an external event deep into our own psyche, correct?
Spot on. Instead of looking at it objectively and saying, "Wow, that was a tough situation," we shift to thinking, "Wow, I am fundamentally flawed."
That's a heavy mental burden to carry.
It truly is. A single rejection gets twisted into, "I'm completely unlovable." A piece of constructive criticism turns into, "Nobody values my presence." A broken plan morphs into, "I'm destined to fail at everything."
So we take a temporary, painful event and mistakenly forge it into our personal identity.
Yes, and that identity shift makes our immediate reaction vastly more explosive. Because they feel wounded, they speak words designed to wound. Because they're angry, they attack. Because they feel let down, they make permanent choices based on temporary disappointment.
And then, once the emotional storm clears and they cool down, they're left thinking, why on earth did I say those things?
Oh, absolutely. The lingering regret that follows an impulsive emotional outburst is an incredibly bitter pill to swallow. But what about the second type of person?
The second type of person encounters that same exact intense pressure. They still feel the sting of rejection, they still feel the burning anger, they still feel the crushing disappointment. However, they deliberately hit the pause button before allowing those emotions to dictate their next physical step.
So they aren't just wearing a fake smile or pretending the issue doesn't hurt.
Not at all. They simply decline to give the problem full permission to occupy their entire mental real estate.
That takes immense mental fortitude.
It really does. It isn't the kind of strength where you turn into stone and feel zero pain. It's the strength ensuring that pain doesn't automatically steer your vocabulary, your choices, or your future path.
So the defining factor isn't who has difficulties, because let's face it, everyone is dealing with something. The true distinction lies between the person who acts on the very first wave of emotion and the person who waits for the water to calm before choosing how to steer the ship.
That is an incredibly deep realization. One individual becomes consumed by the feeling, while the other simply observes the feeling. And that tiny shift in perspective can completely alter the final outcome of an entire situation.
And this ties right back to your text message story from earlier, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The concrete fact was, my friend texted, That was the entirety of the reality.
Just an isolated, neutral response.
Yes, but my brain refused to accept it at face value. It immediately began assigning painful meanings to it. She's completely uninterested. I'm being an annoyance. She doesn't value our friendship.
So the true source of your anxiety wasn't the actual message, but the negative interpretation your mind attached to it.
Exactly. And this is precisely why all or nothing, black and white thinking is so toxic.
Right, because it completely obliterates the nuance in the middle.
Precisely. Black and white thinking forces your mind to sprint straight towards radical extremes. Things are either flawlessly perfect or an absolute catastrophe. It tells you they either adore me or they utterly despise me.
So instead of concluding, hey, they might just be occupied right now, your brain convinces you they don't care about me at all.
Yes, instead of recognizing notes on your project can help you grow, your brain tells you, I'm terrible at my job. Instead of viewing a canceled meeting as a minor scheduling conflict, your mind insists, my luck is entirely non-existent. And this is the exact mechanism behind how we misinterpret our lives.
By misinterpret, we mean processing an event through a completely flawed lens, right?
Spot on. We take a single isolated data point and wrap a painful narrative around it. In essence, we stop viewing reality objectively and start reading it through the lens of our deepest insecurities.
Exactly. A delayed response is translated as abandonment. A differing perspective is viewed as an insult. A minor slip-up is twisted into absolute proof that you are a failure. And the moment your brain buys into that fiction, your physical body responds in kind.
Oh, definitely. Your chest tightens up, your skin starts flushing, your vocal cords tense, and your thumbs desperately want to type out a furious reply. Your phone keyboard becomes a literal battleground.
The thumb transforms into a hyper-emotional soldier, ready to launch a full-scale assault. But right before we initiate that war, there is one crucial question we need to stop and ask ourselves.
Tell me, what is that question?
Do I actually possess the entire story right now?
That is a brilliant question to sit with. Because more often than not, we are working with just one single fragment, one quick text, an ambiguous glance, a sharp tone, or an awkward moment, and our mind immediately tries to fill in the missing puzzle pieces using fear as the ink.
And let's be real, fear is a terrible, overly dramatic author. Fear loves adding intense background music, heavy thunderstorms, and slow-motion tragedy. Reality, on the other hand, is usually much quieter and far more boring.
So, before we launch an emotional counterattack, we can pause and ask, is this an objective fact or is this just an internal story? The objective fact, they haven't called back. The internal story, they are intentionally ignoring me. The objective fact, they disagreed with my idea. The internal story, they want to see me fail. The objective fact, I made an error. The internal story, I am incompetent. And the moment we pull the objective fact away from the fictional story, we create mental space. That specific space is exactly where you reclaim your power.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of reclaiming power, because I can already hear some listeners thinking, if I choose not to react, aren't I just letting people walk all over me?
That is a very valid concern, but choosing not to react is light years away from letting people mistreat you. It does not mean you dissolve your personal boundaries, nor does it mean you swallow your voice and stay mute forever. It simply means you refuse to let the initial, volatile emotional wave dictate your behavior.
Right. You will still absolutely address the issue. You might still say, hey, what you did really hurt my feelings, or please do not use that tone of voice with me.
Exactly. But the core difference is that your words are generated by calm clarity rather than blind panic. You aren't launching a blind counteroffensive, you're attempting to establish genuine communication. That completely shifts the dynamic.
It truly alters everything. Because let's be completely honest, when we lash out from a place of raw hurt, our primary subconscious goal is usually to make the other person suffer just as much as we are.
Wow, that is a beautifully vulnerable admission. We deploy sharp, cutting remarks. We exhume ancient arguments from months ago. We inflate a minor misunderstanding into a massive, relationship-threatening war. We become incredibly defensive before we even comprehend what the other person actually meant.
Yes, defensive means putting up your shields and acting as though you're under physical attack. You immediately start over-explaining your motives, interrupting the other person, pointing fingers, or building a fortress around your ego.
Precisely. Even when no one was actually trying to harm you in the first place. Your nervous system senses a threat, so your mouth instantly starts building a defensive wall.
And then later on, once the adrenaline leaves your system, you reflect and realize, that wasn't even close to my actual intention.
Right, because your temporary emotion hijacked the microphone before the real, conscious version of you could even step onto the stage. So, gaining self-command requires an internal shift before a single word ever leaves your lips. What's a good internal phrase we can practice using?
I love telling myself, I am under no obligation to speak from this temporary feeling.
Oh, that is magnificent. I am under no obligation to speak from this feeling. Because while the emotion itself is entirely valid, it shouldn't be running the entire corporation. The feeling can absolutely sit in the conference room, but it doesn't get to act as the CEO.
I love that analogy. Exactly. So when something stings, you can internally say, I am feeling highly triggered right now. I need to step away. Or, I desperately want to fire back a response, but I know I should wait. Or, I don't actually have all the data yet. These brief internal scripts put a brake on our automatic reactions.
And slowing down is everything, because emotional impulses almost always travel significantly faster than wisdom. That is why the intentional pause is so sacred. It's that crucial, tiny gap between experiencing a sensation and committing to an action.
And sometimes that microscopic gap is the single thing that rescues a beautiful relationship. The pause can be as basic as setting your phone face down on the table, or taking one deep, deliberate breath before speaking, or calmly stating, let me sit with this for a moment. I want to make sure I reply thoughtfully.
That specific phrase is absolute gold. It's completely grounded and poised without sounding chilly or distant.
Exactly. You aren't ghosting or shutting the other person out. You're actively protecting the integrity of the dialogue.
That is a beautiful phrase, protecting the integrity of the dialogue. Because if I fire off a text while my blood is boiling, I might win a petty 5-second victory, but I will cause long-term damage to the trust between us.
And we've all been guilty of that. We trade 5 seconds of cheap emotional satisfaction for 5 days of excruciating awkward silence.
That is painfully accurate. The intentional pause allows you to ask, what is my ultimate goal in this interaction? Am I seeking resolution? Am I seeking clarity? Do I want mutual understanding, or do I simply want to inflict emotional pain?
That final question is incredibly raw, but we don't need to judge or shame ourselves for having that dark impulse. We just need to realize that we don't have to obey it. Not every passing emotion has earned the right to trigger a real-world action. An impulsive, knee-jerk reaction feels incredibly powerful for a fleeting moment, but it frequently creates an avalanche of problems that take months to clean up.
By impulsive, we mean reacting with zero forethought, correct? Just moving before considering the fallout.
Exactly. And a single impulsive sentence can instantly cause a situation to escalate.
And escalate means blowing something way out of proportion, making it significantly worse or more volatile. So the pause isn't just about self-soothing, it's a strategic move to keep a small spark from turning into a massive forest fire.
Precisely. If a colleague critiques your work, pause. If an event falls through, pause. If you feel excluded, pause. If you experience a sudden wave of embarrassment, definitely pause, because embarrassment has a unique way of triggering lightning-fast reactions.
That is so profoundly true. Half the time, we aren't even genuinely angry. We're just deeply embarrassed, and anger rushes to the front lines to shield our vulnerability.
Exactly. Anger steps in like an incredibly aggressive, loud bodyguard who has zero professional training.
None whatsoever. Tell me, what is that question?
Reacting is an automatic reflex. Responding is a conscious choice. Reacting screams, I feel this discomfort, so I must act right this second. Responding murmurs, I feel this discomfort, so I'm going to slow down and map out my next move with care. That's the exact muscle we're trying to build. But Priya, what happens if someone objects and says, if I just sit there and pause, people will view me as a weak or passive?
I completely understand where that anxiety comes from, but stepping back to pause is the absolute furthest thing from weakness. Then how would you define it?
It's pure, unadulterated self-command. Pausing proves that you possess the strength to remain unswayed by every passing storm, every negative remark, every bad mood, or every chaotic variable around you.
So a centered person isn't someone who is completely hollow and feels nothing.
Not at all. A centered person feels the entire spectrum of emotion deeply, yet possesses the wisdom to choose their actions deliberately. That feels like the absolute core lesson of this entire discussion.
It truly is. Cultivating restraint isn't about becoming a robot, it's about attaining clarity. Furthermore, it's about showing deep kindness to your future self.
Your future self? Say more about that.
Think about it. Your current emotional state desperately wants to fire off that toxic email, walk out the job, scream at the top of your lungs, or burn a bridge. But your future self is the one who actually has to pick up the pieces and live in the aftermath.
Wow, that is a powerful perspective. Your future self is the one who has to send the apology text, repair the damaged dynamic, fix the professional error, or sit with that heavy knot of shame in their stomach. So before you react, ask yourself a simple question. Will the version of me tomorrow thank me for what I'm about to do right now?
Yes, that question is beautifully simple but immensely grounding. If the honest answer is a resounding no, then you should probably pause.
Definitely pause. And when you commit to practicing this consistently over time, a profound internal shift takes place.
What is that shift? You develop a deep, unshakable trust in yourself because you finally realize that you are fully capable of holding a heavy emotion without shattering. You realize you can feel deeply wounded without becoming cruel. You can feel furious without turning destructive. You can feel completely misunderstood without desperately over-explaining yourself.
That is true sovereignty, and this is exactly where the concept of restraint takes center stage.
Restraint is the deliberate choice to hold yourself back from a specific action even when every single fiber of your being is screaming at you to do it.
Exactly. Restraint means an emotion is blazing inside you, but you refuse to let that temporary fire steer the vehicle. So restraint isn't a lack of power.
No way. Restraint is power under perfect control. It allows you to invest deeply in life without losing your center.
Precisely. Some people mistakenly assume that a composed response means, I don't give a damn, but that is a complete misconception. You can care immensely while maintaining your emotional footing. You can love someone deeply while calmly stating, I need to step away from this conversation for an hour.
You can respect someone immensely while firmly saying, let's table this discussion until tomorrow morning. You can be perfectly tranquil without being a doormat. You can be entirely honest without deploying cruel words.
To tie our entire journey together today, life throws an intense curveball. Your immediate instinct is to internalize the issue. Your brain steps in to misinterpret the narrative. You feel yourself getting defensive. An impulsive urge takes over. The entire situation threatens to escalate. But then, utilizing restraint enables you to step back and craft a thoughtful response.
That is the complete cycle of emotional intelligence.
Exactly. You always have two paths. You can react automatically, or you can pause, audit the story in your head, and choose a conscious response. And that single choice can preserve your peace, safeguard your words, and protect your most cherished relationships.
Before we pivot over to our signature word tour, let's leave our community with one final thought to meditate on.
What thought is that?
Choosing not to react does not mean I am indifferent. It means I am intentionally deciding what is truly worthy of my life force.
That is absolutely beautiful. Now, let's transition into our vocabulary deep dive to equip our listeners with the exact language required to discuss these internal transformations with confidence. The word tour.
Short musical transition. Welcome to the word tour. Today, we are going to unpack exactly 6 sophisticated words directly from our chat, giving you the tools to articulate exactly what goes on inside your mind before an emotional reaction occurs. Let's kick things off with word number 1.
1. Internalize. Our opening word is internalize. To internalize means to take an external comment, attitude, or event and absorb it deeply into your own mind and emotions, turning it into a personal belief. For instance, if a manager gives you a note on your performance and you immediately start telling yourself, wow, I am completely incompetent, you are internalizing that feedback.
Ah, got it. So the critique originated on the outside, but I pulled it inside and let it live in my head.
Exactly. A great sevens pattern is, I am actively learning not to internalize other people's negative opinions, or I completely internalized what she said during our argument.
And we can also use internalized as an adjective to describe something that has taken root inside us over time, like internalized stress or internalized fear. So if I say, he deals with a lot of internalized pressure, it means that pressure has been quietly sitting within his psyche for years.
Precisely. And that pressure might not even have anything to do with his current life. It could stem from childhood expectations or old wounds. Let's look at a quick dialogue example. Person A: you seemed really detached after our team meeting. Is everything okay? Person B: I think I accidentally internalized the director's notes. It felt like a personal attack on my character. Person A: remember, his feedback was strictly about the spreadsheets, not your value as a human being.
Perfect illustration. That highlights the boundary beautifully. Quick correction for our learners: avoid saying, I internalized myself. Instead, say, I internalized the criticism, or I internalized her words. Use it instead of saying, I got the wrong idea.
2. Misinterpret. Word number 2 on our list is misinterpret. To misinterpret means to analyze or understand a situation, action, or statement in a completely incorrect or flawed way. This is an incredible word for relationship discussions because we constantly react to our assumption of what someone meant.
Give us a clear, real-world example of this.
Say someone takes 8 hours to text you back, and you instantly decide they hate you. You are highly likely misinterpreting their lack of response. The reality is simply a delayed text, but your brain misinterprets it as a loss of affection.
A highly diplomatic phrase to use in real life is, I think I might have misinterpreted your initial message. That sounds infinitely more mature than yelling, you were incredibly rude to me.
Absolutely. You can also say, I completely misinterpreted your tone of voice, or I misinterpreted your silence. The noun form is misinterpretation. For instance, our massive argument was sparked by a simple misinterpretation of the data. Let's hear a quick mini conversation. Person A: when I told you I needed an afternoon to myself, it didn't mean our relationship was in trouble. Person B: I realize now that I completely misinterpreted it. I genuinely thought you were pulling away from me. Person A: not at all. I just needed some quiet time to recharge my battery.
That is a brilliant sentence to memorize. I think I misinterpreted it. Quick grammar tip: do not say, I misinterpreted about your text. Keep it direct. I misinterpreted your text, or I misinterpreted your actions. Use this instead of saying, I got the wrong idea.
3. Defensive. Our third keyword is defensive. Being defensive means reacting with immediate resistance, excuses, or aggression because you subconsciously feel like you're under attack, even when the other person is speaking completely neutrally.
So if someone says, hey, could you please put your coffee cup in the sink? And I immediately snap back with, I work 60 hours a week. I don't have time for your chores. That's me being defensive, right?
Yes, precisely. You could later say, I got incredibly defensive the moment you brought up the kitchen. It means you felt an immediate urge to protect your ego. You can say, he sounded highly defensive on the phone, or my initial reaction was purely defensive. What about the noun form, defensiveness?
You can use it like this. Her constant defensiveness made it impossible to have an honest conversation. It means her protective walls blocked any real connection. The base verb is defend, to protect. While defending someone from harm is noble, getting defensive usually means you're reacting too quickly from a place of insecurity. Let's look at an everyday dialogue. Person A: hey, just a heads up, that comment you made at dinner felt a bit intense. Person B: intense? I was literally just stating a fact. Why is everyone always picking on me? Person A: I'm not attacking you at all. I just wanted to share how it made me feel. Person B: okay, I'm sorry. I definitely got a little defensive there. That is a very self-aware apology. Quick correction: never say I became defend. Always use I got defensive or I became defensive. Swap out the phrase, "I acted like I was under attack" for this sleek be-to adjective.
4. Impulsive. Word number 4 on our list is impulsive. To be impulsive means to act or speak with lightning speed, driven by a sudden surge of emotion, without pausing to evaluate the future consequences. It's the definitive word for reckless emotional actions.
So if I get a frustrating email from my landlord and immediately send a furious capitalization-locked reply within 30 seconds, that was an impulsive move.
Completely impulsive. You can say, firing off that email was incredibly impulsive. Or, I made an impulsive purchase online because I was stressed.
And the noun form is impulse, which represents that sudden, intense internal urge. For example, I felt a powerful impulse to slam the door.
And a beautiful way to show growth is, I successfully resisted the impulse to fire back. The adverb form is impulsively. For instance, I reacted impulsively to the news, or she spoke impulsively during the meeting. In short, your rational mind was completely locked out of the room. Let's listen to a mini chat. Person A, did you end up answering his text message? Person B, yeah, I replied way too quickly. It was incredibly impulsive. Person A, what did you end up saying? Person B, something that the calm, rational version of me is deeply regretting right now.
We've all been there. Quick grammar tip: never say "I did impulsive." Use "I was impulsive" or "I acted impulsively." Use this vocabulary upgrade instead of saying "I did it without thinking." Our fifth high-yield word is escalate. To escalate means to rapidly increase in intensity, magnitude, or severity. We typically use this word when a minor disagreement snowballs into a massive shouting argument.
So if a couple starts out discussing who forgot to buy milk, but within 5 minutes they are screaming about an incident from 3 years ago, the situation has escalated?
Exactly. You would say the minor misunderstanding quickly escalated, or the conversation escalated into a full-blown screaming match. If you want to keep things calm, you can say, I am upset, but I really don't want to escalate this further.
That is such a powerful phrase for conflict resolution. It signals that you are experiencing emotion but prioritizing peace.
The noun version is escalation, as in we need to take steps to avoid further escalation.
And the exact opposite verb is de-escalate, which means to actively diffuse tension and bring the emotional temperature down. For example, she used a soft voice to de-escalate the hostile customer. Sending a chain of caps lock texts is the definition of escalating. Let's hear a quick example. Why didn't you text me back right away last night?
I knew I was way too angry, and I realized an immediate response would only escalate the situation.
So what did you do instead?
I went to sleep, waited until morning, and then asked if we could talk calmly.
Incredible maturity. Quick correction note. Avoid saying, the argument escalated big. Instead, say, the situation escalated or the problem escalated significantly. Use this instead of saying, make things worse.
We have arrived at our final word for the tour: restraint. Restraint is the profound ability to hold yourself back from executing an action, particularly when you're experiencing a massive internal urge to do it. This word is the absolute cornerstone of our entire episode.
So, if someone insults me to my face and my entire being wants to yell back a clever insult, but I consciously choose to take a breath and remain silent, that is me exercising restraint.
Precisely. You showed restraint. That collocation, to show restraint, is incredibly natural in English. You can say, she showed immense restraint by not responding to the internet trolls. Another excellent phrasing is, I am trying to practice restraint when I feel triggered.
What about the adjective form, restrained?
You can use it to describe a controlled action, like his statement to the press was incredibly restrained and professional. It means it was measured and deliberate, not explosive. The root verb is restrain. I successfully restrained myself from eating the entire cake, or I restrained myself from leaving a nasty comment.
Let's check out our final dialogue. I saw the way your client spoke to you in the boardroom. I honestly don't know how you stayed so poised.
Trust me, I was furious inside, but I actively practiced restraint. I couldn't let the deal fall through.
That was incredibly wise. Your self-control completely saved the contract.
Beautifully done. Quick grammar wrap-up. Never say I did restraint. The correct verbs are I showed restraint, I practiced restraint, or I restrained myself. Use this gorgeous noun instead of saying I stopped myself from doing it.
Now we want to hand the microphone over to our incredible Dopely English podcast community. We want you to actively practice what you learned today. Head down to the comments section right now and compose exactly one original sentence utilizing any single word from today's word tour.
You can write something like, I completely misinterpreted his expression during dinner, or I noticed myself getting defensive when she critiqued my essay, or even, I practiced immense restraint and put my phone on airplane mode. We are going to personally read through your sentences.
And that brings us to the final moments of today's journey. Always hold on to this truth. Keeping your composure does not mean you're a blank canvas with no feelings. It simply means you're taking a sacred moment to choose your response with intention.
So, throughout this upcoming week, the very moment an interaction stings or upsets you, just take one deep breath, hit the pause button, and ask yourself, do I actually have the full story right now?
If today's conversation brought value to your English learning journey, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and text this episode to a friend who might appreciate this gentle reminder.
Don't forget to drop your practice sentence down below. Take care of your evolving English skills.
And take beautiful care of your heart. I'm Priya.
And I'm Rohan. Thank you for listening to the Dopely English podcast. See you in our next episode. Bye.